For those of you who don't know me, I'm Charo Neville. I'm the curator of the Kamloops Art Gallery. I don't curate every exhibition, but I am very thrilled that you'll be seeing tonight a project that I've been organizing and dreaming about for quite a long time. So you'll be able to go into the exhibition and immerse yourselves very soon. Because I know that most of you won't have seen the exhibition yet, I've brought together this brilliant team of dancers and curators to talk through some of the ideas as kind of an entry point to give you some context to why we think dance in the gallery is really important. So I'm honored to be joined by Justine A. Chambers, exhibiting artist. In the middle, Luciana Freire D'Anunciação. They're both exhibiting work in the exhibition. And then we also have Jenn Goodwin and Vanessa Kwan, who are dancer curators. And instead of reading their bios, I thought we'd just do a round and you guys can introduce yourselves.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Oop. Not yet?
How about now? Oh, all right. My name is Justine Chambers. I live in Vancouver. I'm currently in my second year as faculty at the School for Contemporary Arts at Simon Fraser University, but first and foremost, I identify as a dancer, choreographer, mom. I'm a mom. That certainly made my practice something much more generative than I would have ever thought. My work straddles the line between dance and visual art. For the last 15 years, I've been showing my work in both places. But regardless of folks wanting me to be a visual artist, I stand firm in my position as being a dancer. And I'm delighted to be with these excellent humans whom I adore.
Sure, great. Hi, I'm Jenn Goodwin. I'm here from Toronto, Takarano. Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Thank you very much for bringing me in. I am a dance artist, a choreographer, a curator, programmer, producer, mother of 2 teenage boys. I have been at the City of Toronto, working at the City of Toronto, organizing an event called Nuit Blanche on and off for 20 years. And I took a leave of absence at one point to get my master's in visual studies with a focus on dance in galleries and how bodies move through the galleries and how we bring dance and care for dance and bodies and performance in gallery spaces. And then for a short time, I was also the curator of public performance and programs at the Toronto Biennial of Art as well. Thanks.
I'm Luciana. I am originally from Brazil, but I've been living in Vancouver for almost 20 years now. I'm a dance artist, performance artist, and I have interest also in video, sound, theater, lots of things. I am also I like writing poetry. I feel like I'm curious into many ways that I can express myself. I feel like the expression of the human body is the thing that's linking everything. I'm also a portrait photographer. And yeah, I don't know. What else should I say? A poet, yes. I feel like usually I'm curious about something, and if I'm working in dance for a while, then suddenly I feel like I need to do something in video and take a break from that thing. There is always a way that a medium can offer a way of telling a story that I kind of crave. As soon as I'm finishing something, I feel like I go rotating among them. I think I will say that for now. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vanessa Kwan. You can also call me VK. You will hear other people calling me VK. Either is fine, so Vanessa or VK. I'm here from Vancouver, which is Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh territory, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much. I feel like Jen and I are kind of the hype people for Justine and Luciana today. I'm a curator and a producer. I also came into this art world doing performance, and I think that's maybe why I'm here, is this kind of like rootedness in performing within mostly gallery spaces that has kind of led me in my career. So I've been working in curatorial and directorship roles for the last maybe 15 or 20 years in Vancouver, and throughout all of those jobs, performance has been incredibly important to me in terms of like, it's something I carry with me all the time to kind of test things, to work on things collaboratively, to understand the material of something. Performance has always been a really incredible tool and a really incredible companion for me. And Justine in particular, we've worked together a number of times, and so it's just a real delight. So thank you for letting me be here and have this conversation.
So I'm going to start by giving a little bit of context for my thinking around the exhibition. For some of you, it might seem unexpected or unusual that there would be dance in an art gallery, but I've attempted it in different ways. In 2016, I curated an exhibition that some of you might remember. It's a while back, but it was called All of Our Membranes Are Porous. So that exhibition focused on the body. And then more recently, Luciana actually was here to perform with Zoe Cry, and that entire exhibition was also about somatic experiences, and she painted with her body. But typically, dance is an event or like part of an art party at a museum. So this is kind of a curiosity for me around how dance and visual art worlds converge or don't. Jenn, maybe we'll just start with you, because I credit your performance series that you mentioned. It was called Your Timing is Perfect, Moments and Movements of Inquiry at the Toronto Art Biennale in 2024. And Justine's work was in that programming, and Tanya Lucan-Linklater, who is in this exhibition, as well as Andrea Nan. And then you also, as part of your MFA exhibition that was in Images Festival, I love your titles of your exhibitions, so I'm going to say it.
I love titling. Love-hate relationship with titles. I feel like, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so it was called All of Our Days Are Full of Breath, and they are. A record of momentum. So you were asking specifically a question that helped me frame my own inquiry, which is how can dance and the body hold space as an exhibition in a gallery? So I'm curious about all of your thoughts around that, but maybe, Jenn, if you want to start us off and
Sure. I'll do
say
a little
what motivated you to ask that question.
foundational. Yeah, I think as the dance in the gallery is not new, yet it's still very young. It's been like 100 years in the making, or longer, much longer. But I think dance galleries and museums are still learning and trying to understand how to host the humans in many ways, from guests to artists themselves. So, and dance, for me, I was noticing and finding myself, dance was often brought in as sort of like, can you dance in front of this object and then go away? And usually and that for me was a bit of a wonky value system as well. But there was a lot of talk also about the choreographic and a little bit more so from the visual art context. So as someone who worked in dance, I also wanted to learn a bit more to be able to speak to that from a dance lens. So to look at also how we were hosting people in galleries, but also how we're inviting dance in to be more than a program and to be an exhibition itself. And so I was thinking like, what remains when we also dance in spaces? What traces are left as well? What is the power of ephemerality? So not just what can dancers make when you ask a dance artist, what would remain? Is it an object? But also the power of memory, the power of sensation, the power of feelings, emotions, and the power of movement. So that's where I started to ask that question. And then I wanted to have some inquiries also about how we're looking at time and space and inviting people as material, time and space and movement as material. So that was kind of some of my foundational research, and I was the first dance artist in that program. So that was really fun to kind of poke around in there and ask some cool questions. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that there have been a lot more exhibitions that include dance as a durational part of the exhibition that I've been looking to as well. So, I mean, that's how I do a lot of my research, is being so kind of removed from major urban centers. I look to what other curators are doing, and it's happening.
That's it. There is a rich
Yeah.
history of dance in the gallery and museums for
Yeah.
sure, and we're kind of like in this maybe third wave of it, perhaps.
I think
you know?
so.
And certainly like Justine and Luciana are part of the, you know, at the forefront of that. So we're all lucky to be here and hang out together and chat with that. And I've had the pleasure of working with Justine and Andrea Nan and Tanya Lucan Linklater, and now know your work a bit more too.
And BK, when we were kind of in preparation, talking together about talking tonight, you talked about how performance can teach us what we value, and how we value objects and bodies differently. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, thanks for the question. It's something that I think about quite a lot when I'm working. And it might have been, like, I would maybe just chart that back to some of the first performances that I programmed were kind of that situation that Jen just outlined, like come and perform in front of these objects. I did a program called Fuse at the Vancouver Art Gallery for many years in the early part of my career. And it was one of those things where you'd bring artists in like Justine to do works in and amongst the exhibitions. And so there was certainly a bit of a hierarchy between how the objects were treated and then how performance was privileged. But I would say the thing that I took away with it and the thing that really affected me in my practice was working with artists to create pieces inside these spaces that weren't necessarily built for performance. So that really put my position as a kind of negotiator, or sort of kind of like, I had to be in service of a body in the way that I really needed to pay attention to. And so bringing audiences in great numbers into these spaces, and knowing that the curators of the exhibitions were really, really worried about the objects, but we all had to also worry about bodies. So that was, to me, really highlighted some of those kind of, I guess, edges of what museums and white cube spaces can do, and how we really do privilege objects first and foremost. But we're in the business of engagement, and that is all of you. That is bringing bodies into these spaces. And what performers can do, and they can do many more things, but one of the things that maybe I really hold close is that they can kind of show us what a space is capable of if we support them. And it also asks of you to really evaluate what the space was made for and then change it or adapt it. And that that can be a really powerful process. That can be a really, really important collaboration if you're lucky, you know. And I think we could all talk about the gigs that go wrong, but I think that when it goes right, it's really, really quite amazing. And you can really feel like the role of the individual as a translator, as a caregiver, as a supporter, as someone who was in service to the overall experience, and ultimately to ushering something in, which can be a really humbling experience as well as super satisfying. So I would say the question of what does dance teach us? It's like teaches us to really attend to one another in a really special way. And teaches us to really see the limitations of a space and then attend to those as well. Yeah.
Justine, you already mentioned that you've been making work in galleries for quite some time. I listened to a talk between you and Laurie Young. Laurie is in the work that you'll see in the gallery, a longtime collaborator of Justine's. So can you talk about that transition? Maybe it was from moving from Toronto to Vancouver, but from performing other choreographers' work and then making your own work.
Yeah, I left Toronto. I worked in Toronto, which is how I know Jen. We met 25 years ago, going across the floor in dance class. And I left Toronto in 2004 and moved to LA, which was like quite a jarring experience. Because in LA there was no modern dance, there was no contemporary dance, it was all commercial dance, and that was something that was a little bit unknown to me. I had this moment where actually by the time I left LA, I had quit dancing completely, because I was quite heartbroken by that process, by many things in dance. But when I moved to Vancouver, eventually it was a visual artist that pulled me back into dance. And because she said to me, "I think you're an artist." And I said, "No, I'm not a dancer anymore." And she said, "That's not what I said." And I said, "Oh, okay." And so I sort of found my way back in. There's quite a lot of devastation that comes in dance training. If anybody here has survived a ballet school or competition dancing, whatever it is, it's like very arduous for children to go through these things. I just needed a break from that kind of exposure, maybe, and maybe even that kind of rigor. I'd been so rigorous so much of my life, I think I wanted to have fun, but when I came back into dance, I decided I was going to do it on my terms, and that I was only going to do things that brought me a sense of joy or learning. Did you hear me at the back?
Yeah.
So I made my way towards making work. I'd made a little bit of work that Jenn was in, or in the early 2000s, but I started to think through making work again, and it became clear to me very quickly that my projects were very odd, and that they did not fit the dance milieu. I wasn't doing what my colleagues were doing, and luckily that's never really bothered me that I don't fit in. Perhaps as a biracial person, that's sort of been my space, is somewhere in the middle. And it was when I don't know which point, I started making strange dances, and Vanessa Kwan saw one of my strange dances. That was between two doorways at the back of the theater, and we never really came out of the doorways. Not a lot of movement involved. And I think that was sort of an introduction to me understanding that perhaps my work lived elsewhere, and it didn't live on stages all the time. And perhaps it was about my work needing to occupy another space to do what it would needed to do. And so that has continued. And I do have to say, Vanessa has brought me into a lot of spaces to create, has invited me to create otherwise. I feel like I've been quite lucky in Vancouver. It's become a real working space for me where I can perhaps even challenge my own held beliefs about what I do as an artist, what I do as a dancer. And here I am, here we are, all together, bodies together in space, yeah? And so I keep making work. I think what the guiding force for me is, here's the idea. What does the idea need? What's going to get the idea to the next place? I don't need to adapt my idea to a stage or to a dancing body all the time. I don't have to, it's really what is the work asking for? And that determines the context, the construct, and even like the conceptual frame. I feel like the conceptual framing of the work dictates how you receive it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that was your question.
I think it was.
You covered a lot. So what you will see lots of bodies in this exhibition, but you'll see a lot of screens. So the way that we're able to have an exhibition that lasts 3 months is to show video. There's a lot of video and sound. So all of you have made dance for the camera, which is different than the documentation of a dance, where editing becomes a kind of choreography of its own. And Jenn, you mentioned a lot of the temporal or the time differences between event-based time and exhibition time. This difference between being in proximity to a living, breathing body and one that's on a screen. So maybe Justine and Luciana. Luciana, maybe you want to start just poking at that question of liveness and editing as choreography in relation to your work in the exhibition?
So yeah, I feel like whenever I'm working with video, there is a desire for something to continue, that it can exist without my presence or without the presence of another body. And that can give an opportunity for you to watch it again, do a close-up, or like have a little bit of an agency on how you see it. So there is something about temporality in it that I'm interested. And bringing video to the gallery, especially in that work that I'm doing, is like I have dancers and I'm projecting them in the screens. They're larger than their sizes, so there is something a little bit like not real, but at the same I feel their presence very strong there, but it's a presence of the past. So there's something I'm very interested in. That's like what it feels like it's me remembering something that happened. And the work that I'm doing has a lot of that conversation of what I am remembering or what do I remember and how can I trust my own memories? How can I think like there is something really interesting and creative when we're telling each other stories. There is always a choice of I'm saying this, but I'm not saying that, or the way I'm saying this has a little bit of an exaggeration, or there is maybe a potential for fiction even, especially when you remember things that happened when you're a kid. Even if you talk, like I love like to having conversations with my cousins, for example, and we're talking about things we did when we were kids, and maybe my memories are not real. Sometimes I love that questioning and not being sure if something actually happened, if it's something I saw in a film, and I took that as my own truth in a way. So I think there is that interest for me of fiction and reality. And the liveness of it somehow is still like you seeing a human body being projected there. So there is a physical relationship to that other body that's in a flat surface. For some reason, whenever I'm close to that surface and that object, there is some bodily relationship to it that I think it's because of the size and also the choice of having a dark room that has sound. So I think there is a little bit of a calling for an interaction with it that is also demanding somehow a more physical relationship to it from the audience. That's less, maybe there is more than you sitting and seeing something flat that's far from you, having the choice for you to come closer and have less things distracting you. I don't know, there was something about that calls a little bit of like a bodily interaction with the work. Does it answer a little bit? Yeah.
Justine, you touched on this idea a bit, but do you want to?
Yeah, I can speak briefly.
Yeah.
In fact, the work that I have here is one take. So editing is not choreography. In this work in particular, it's really, we do it in one take. It's a score that has some landmarks that my colleague is really good at hitting. And I am more of a loose cannon, I'm not going to lie. And so we did. She said, that was great. And I was like, one more. And then we did two. And she said, I'm 5 years older than you, Justine. And I said, one more. So this was like a take. But what was different was considering this work, which we made for the stage originally. And very early on when we made it, I thought this would make a great video. This is the only video I've ever worked on, made. I don't work in video. I'm really quite, I'm trying to find a non-negative word.
Ambivalent?
No, I just like, I'm really committed to live performance. I feel like in this world of our constant sort of mediated experience, I really want to see you. And I want to see that movement in your foot, you know, so I'm really quite committed. But this work, as we made it, I thought, oh, this could make a really good video if we just did it like this and we made the room the same as the stage. No. So it is one take, and it's not editing through choreography, but it was very clear to me that I had to completely re-choreograph the work for this. Someone's not necessarily going to stand there for 50 minutes. I mean, I'd love it. You could, right? But you probably won't, which is the kind of the beauty of the gallery. You're not held captive, right, for an hour, and if you hate it, you can walk away, right? But then I thought, what would we have to do to the work for people to just be able to go in, maybe look at it for 12 seconds and leave, right? And maybe, hopefully, they would stay for longer. So it became about like reorganizing an existing work to really think about what it is for this space, this kind of space, for varied attention spans. Because in general, like in Europe, people will walk out of shows. They don't care. They hurt your feelings. But that doesn't really happen in Canada. So I think, oh, if people are hating this, they're staying. And at the end, they're cranky and they're hungry. And they just want to go home, and it's raining because we live in Vancouver, right? So I think, oh, how can we give people another experience with the work that gives you a sense of how it feels? And that's the work that's here. So you can pop in, but you could stay. Up to you.
Sorry, I didn't talk about the editing as choreography that I feel like mine is very much. In a way, I chose to have like 4 screens, and I'm editing each of them separate. Like each of them are playing one video. They're not the same 4 things, and there is a consideration to where each thing is happening in relationship to the other one. So in a way, I really thought of how everything is happening. There is a relationship to the movement of it, and sometimes getting a full body, sometimes you get fragments of bodies, tons of bodies, and not seeing who is who as well. So I feel like with the language of video, there is a lot that you can portray. In a way, I'm interested not only on the individuality of the body, but also the body, the collective body of the group that worked with me, and not being able to see where one starts, where the other one ends. And at the same time, you can see a little bit of personality in each of them. And at some point, having a little bit darker moments, a little more close up, so there is a little more of intimacy. That invites you in a little bit. When when you take something, you're calling people in, and when you put something, you call people out. So I'm interested in that choreography as well, with the audience that is welcome to wander in the space, to choose a point of view, to change a point of view, to dance in space as well. So I think there is a little bit of all of that.
Maybe we'll go in this direction. VK and Jenn, given that you both are dancers and program dancers, what are your thoughts on liveness?
It's really nice that you called me a dancer. That's so sweet. I've been in a couple of works before, Justine's work, but I am not really a dancer, but thank you. So I mean, liveness and the experience, yeah. I mean, I was thinking as both of you were talking, and I think there's a way in which, like, performance in the room is really, it's about bodies. It's about kind of like centering the body and the liveness of that experience and the uniqueness of that experience. This room, this thing that we're having together will never happen again. This is just for us. And then there's a thing that happens when you do it for documentation or you do it for installation, which is like you are replicating an experience and you're hoping for a kind of standard experience in that room. And so I think of like liveness is about the centrality of the body, and then when I see what you both have done in there, I think it's also about like edges. It's about a really beautiful and savvy strategic use of the edge. What's the edge of the screen? What's the edge of the camera? What is being captured by the sound? So like, I think one thing that both of you do really beautifully is just kind of like poke at those edges and still kind of like translate that experience. So you have brought a kind of like friction into the room that is of aliveness, but it's also for the museum. It's also being true to your own kind of bodily performance and to those of your collaborators. So, I mean, I would just characterize as kind of like, you just have a really different relationship to presentation. You know, there's a centrality and then there's the edge. And I think you guys have both done it really beautifully. And also I think, just to give credit to the gallery team, what a beautiful installation it is. And it's just really incredible just how you can transform space and also use these screens and the hanging material to really kind of like emphasize those edges, I think, and the liveness of being in that.
All the talk about the exhibition, y'all must be getting like pretty psyched, right? Like that. You're like, yeah, let me in there. Doors are going to burst open. Everyone's going to be like, yeah, release the audience. Get in there and eat up the dance. Yeah, I would say it's essential definitely such a digital and mediated dance is essential. The movement is essential to bring into many spaces. And also like VK, how you say like you're not a dancer. And I'm also like, we're all dancers. Everyone's a dancer. But also dancers are specialists. You know, like that there is dancers or dance artists do go have like study, research, go through the world looking at bodies in motion or stillness or the way the materiality of time bodies and thing in a certain way that I think is really important and exciting, that we also ask them to like, how do you see this space and how do you see this time or how do you see the body in relation to certain spaces or your work? And I think it has an opportunity to show to make propositions about how we might move through the world or spaces differently, collectively, what different types of bodies we might see in motion. It makes us think about visibility, movement and motion as resistance, as boundary pushing. I think it's just so absolutely powerful, and I think the exhibition is really well done and really thought out, and also the way you move through it, the prompts and the artwork. So, yeah, and especially AI and all the wild fun things. We won't go there. Don't worry, it's okay. But just more liveness. I think we need to keep collecting together to watch live arts. Yeah.
Well, you did. Here.
Exactly. We did it. We're doing it.
We came together. You touched on a couple things, and I think this will be kind of the last question for us as we wrap up. I think my sense is the prevalence of more dance exhibitions right now is because people are craving it. And that's partly this sort of need to be in relation, especially post-COVID. COVID was really, really hard, and we had to actually physically distance from each other, which is a new phenomenon. It had also taught us about care and about people's labor. And then at the same time, since 2020, I think we've all had a racial awakening. And that's been an important piece, too, about thinking about the experience of BIPOC bodies. And that's definitely in Justine's work. And the other thing I had written down about AI, like AI taking over our ability to think and changing our language. So there's a lot going on right now, I think. And I think that there is, dance is like a living archive as well. So all of the artists they're expressing their lived experience for us to see right there, laying it bare. So I guess my question is, if you guys want to each speak to this idea of why dance practice and embodiment might be critically important right now. And maybe Justine, you can start. You put it really succinctly in a recent conversation. You said, we don't have a body. We are a body. Yeah, it's very simple, but...
Yeah, I think there's... I think it's so important to remember that, people say, oh, my mind and my body. But it's like your mind is your body, is your mind, is your body, is your mind, is your body, right? So, and there is this thing where we just have to it's even the science people believe me when I say this, that sensation is central to cognition. You don't know things without seeing them, without smelling them, without tasting them, without touching them, right? So to do this sort of relegation of all that is felt to the margins, and this is done because what is felt is held as feminized, and the world still has a problem with the feminine, that we have to sort of, whether we like it or not, it centers the way we move through the world, right? It is, we know things because we feel, because we see, and my practice is totally guided by my grandmother, who died a couple of years ago, but she used to always say to me, you feel me? And she never said, do you see me, do you hear me, do you understand me? I mean, you feel me, I think it's it's a beautiful provocation to be in our flesh, and it was also a threat sometimes, but that's a whole other story. But I think, perhaps because of COVID, because of AI, because of computers, because of the pace of the world, I think it's important because not for any other reason, but we are all here together. Nothing happens alone. There are no lone wolves. Only everything happens in relation. And anything that you're going to do will change me in this space right now. Were I to get up and do a flying leap across all of you, I won't. But that will change all of you right now. So I think it's just, for me, it's about a return to you feel me.
I'm going to turn it next to you, Luciana, because you work in community, and I'm curious about this? Do you feel like people are craving embodiment with the kind of so-called amateur dancers that you work with?
Good question. It's hard for me to say because I've been always in it. So it's not, it feels like this is my zone, and then I'm seeing people in and out in a way. But I could also speak from my experience as a performance artist. I think I would say that I professionally did more performance art than I hopped into dance, which performance art coming like historically from visual arts, there was this consideration of the body as another tool to express and to, like make art. And there was this idea of really destroying what has been done in the past, and performance art, like especially in the 70s, was very like, let's break everything, let's start everything new. There was very like destroy to reconstruct things. So there was like a lot of impact, I would say, in the world of the gallery, in the space of the gallery. And I feel like things are changing into something more soft that really demands our capacity of sensing the things that are happening and that we didn't maybe had a chance to notice. Like, I'm very interested in the things that are happening right now and we're not seeing, what's happening between our own bodies, what is happening within like my skin and my clothes, and what's happening within my cells. And there is space everywhere. We don't know what this space is. Some people call it dark matter. People don't know what it is. There's so much more things happening right now that we don't know. And I think it's fascinating to consider that. So I think giving time and silence and space to just notice more what's already happening, I think it's like, I think that's something that's very important. I think we are overwhelmed. Speaking for myself, I am tired. Like, I just can't be like in front of so much like stimuli of the screens. I really need silence sometimes. And then you notice there is never silence. Silence doesn't exist. So I'm excited about these other possibilities of noticing what is actually happening. And there are so many, and what I'm noticing and what you are noticing and what each of us are noticing are very specific. So I think we all can tell stories and share our stories in a very creative way to kind of understand or try to guess a little bit of what, the other possibilities of sensing this world is. So I think it's fascinating how many stories each of us can tell each other and learn and inspire each other.
I'm going to turn it to you, Jenn, because you had mentioned the work that you did in care homes or outside of care homes during the pandemic. Do you want to talk about that kind
Sure.
of need for you and also, I think, for your mom?
Yep,
Yeah.
certainly during COVID, during that time I thought, what can I do? What can we do? What can be done? And of course, the answer was we can dance. And I always say, like a friend and I always say, like, dance wins again. What should we do? We should dance, right? Like, I just find like dance is often the answer. But in that case, a bunch of us got together and it was my mom's 80th birthday and she couldn't come out. So we went to the parking lot and danced for her 80th birthday. And we made dances. And then we invited other people who lived in the care home to witness and look out their windows or come outside. And it was a bunch of like contemporary dancers who were making dancers to like, dances and songs that the way the people who were probably, the demographic was probably between like 80 and 95 or something. So it's not normally how we would make moves, like it in the sense of it was a little bit more out there. Then I said, we'll start with this kind of material and then we're going to hit them with the dark stuff later, like dark contemporary art later. But what it did was a bunch of us got together and we just danced with such joy and we rehearsed in alleys. And then we just started to do a small tour of these works and we performed for someone's 100th birthday. And then we kind of had that in our repertoire. We were like, does anyone have a 100th birthday in your home? Or a birthday in your home? But we also would just perform and also say to people, who's got a birthday this year? Who's got a birthday this year? Oh, you do? Great. Well, this one's for you. But just to say, it was an offering that we were able to do this, and we just said, we called ourselves door-to-door dances, that we were delivering dances door to door. But I often do think like dance is also can be a service. And we know that movement is medicine and motion is medicine. I say we know, but a lot of people, well, we are disconnected from our bodies in so many ways, and people don't know that as much. And I will bet you when you see both Luciana and Justine's work, notice what it does to your body itself, you know? Yeah.
VK, I'm going to leave the last word to you. I know you just returned from the Venice Biennale. Yay. And what I was seeing on Instagram was a lot of focus on bodies. Do you find, is there something that you're noticing in the art world around embodiment or the inclusion of bodies or dance, performance art more?
Yeah, I would say on a wider scale, there's more of an awareness and a desire to have performance in different kinds of spaces. I think there's a lot of artists who are very high profile who are incorporating performance into their work, and it's really, in some ways, it's super sensational. There was the kind of like, the pavilion that everyone was talking about in Venice was a performance. It was based in performance. It's an artist from Austria named Florentina Holzinger, and it was very spectacular. And so people were lining up for hours and hours and hours. I did not see the work because the lineup was too long, but that was my physical experience of the work, and I take that away with me. And so I think that that's also part of it. Is like, I think that what performance offers is like you just have to be alive. And I mean, Luciana said it very well. It's like we're just so overwhelmed, you know. And I think things like Instagram are great as these kind of portals that take us to different places, and we can learn so many things. But sometimes at the end of the day, you're like, I just want to be alive. And if my feet hurt and I'm standing in this lineup and I can't see the performance, that's being alive too. So it's like, you know, I mean, I think we have to. I think the greatest thing we can have is a kind of like opportunity to engage ourselves in our kind of analysis and discernment and curiosity, and I think liveness does that for us. And I do feel institutionally we're really curious about it because of, again, what it can teach us. But I think that you're really correct about COVID kind of giving the public a real desire for liveness, and institutions are probably following that. So we want to get back to our kind of like intuitive selves in many ways, and institutions see that. And artists are seeing that, and they're bringing it forward, and that's what's kind of like metabolizing this this greater presence, I think, for liveness in the museum.
It's a good thing. Mm-hmm. You'll actually notice when you enter the gallery doors that I'm experimenting a bit. So we placed different prompts on the floor for you, like breathe, feel, move as you go along through the exhibition. And there's many resources, many books, many ways to access the work in the exhibition, many interactive points along the way. So I hope that works for you. And before we kind of do a wrap up, I do want to mention that Luciana's doing a workshop tomorrow and on Monday. There are 7 spots left. So if any of you are keen, you can register tonight and join her. I think it starts at 2. And there's writing and movement embodiment practice in that workshop. And we're also hoping to bring Andrea Nan and Sarah Chase to offer a performance and a talk and a workshop July 18th and 19th. So stay tuned for that. And then I just wanted to point out Naseem Paradi in front row here. And really, don't miss her work in the cube. Sometimes it's easy to kind of miss where it is. You just go through the store to your left, and there's actually a lot of movement in Naseem's work as well. And Naseem will be giving a talk on June 27th at the gallery as well, so don't miss that. Thank you all for your very embodied attention, and thank you all for your thoughts and
Thank you.
your liveliness.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.